So this is the Elephone U, the cheaper version of the Elephone U Pro. It has quite a few differences, but it also is cheaper. There are two versions, one with 4 GB of RAM and 64 GB of memory, and another version with 6 GB of RAM and 128 GB of memory, and they are priced in between 280 to 320 euros. So it's a bit cheaper than the Elephone U Pro, but it also has some cut downs on the specs side of things. So let's have a look at the first impressions. So I got the blue version of the Elephone U, and it is a gorgeous phone, just like the Elephone U Pro. In fact, it looks pretty much identical to the Elephone U Pro, but there are a few design differences. First of all, the build quality isn't as perfect as on the U Pro, which becomes obvious when touching the hardware buttons, which do rattle quite a bit. Let me just hold it onto my microphone so you can hear this. So they are quite a bit loose and cause some rattle. And another difference is that it doesn't come with a glossy metal frame, but a matte metal frame instead. Like the Elephone U Pro, the Elephone U also comes with an AMOLED screen, which is a curved panel, as you can see there. It comes in 18:9 format with Full HD Plus resolution. So it's the very same panel, looks really good. Touchscreen is also the same, it's a 10-point touchscreen and it works really well. So what other differences do we have there? Well, the processor actually is a different one. Instead of the Snapdragon 660, which is used in the Pro model, this one comes with a Mediatek Helio P23 processor. This one is based on 4 Cortex A53 cores with 2 GHz and another 4 Cortex A53 cores clocked at 1.5 GHz, and it also got a dual-core Mali G71 GPU. And I have to say that I'm quite impressed how much work they put into optimization on this phone, because compared to other Helio P23 devices, this one runs very smooth. Of course, it's not as smooth as the Pro version with the Snapdragon 660, but it comes very close. You have got a very snappy user experience there, very fluent. And yeah, in general, it's a pleasure to use the Elephone U, to be honest with you. You really don't notice immediately that this is based on a Mediatek chipset. Software-wise, we are running Android 7.1.1 here, so not Android Oreo as on the Elephone U Pro, which is a bit sad, but they still did customize it a bit like on the U Pro, so it looks pretty much identical. But actually there are a few software differences to the U Pro model. So when you go into these settings, you will find a Surface side screen, which enables some quick settings on the edge of the screen, which looks definitely different than on the Pro model. On the Pro model you have been able to place apps on the side of the screen instead of settings. So I don't know why they did that different there, but it definitely is a better solution because the edge thingy on the Elephone U Pro didn't work as well as this quick setting thing here. Also, the camera application is a different one here. It's a little bit more simple than on the Pro model, has less settings, less features, and it also lacks the capability of recording 4K video. So you can record only full HD footage on the Elephone U. Both with the main camera on the rear and the front camera. The main camera on the rear is a dual camera unit like on the Elephone U Pro. Both cameras on there are 13 megapixel units. One does color pictures, one does monochrome shots, and together they create that bokeh effect that we all want to have. And yep, it's definitely a real dual camera, and it works so much better than on the Elephone U Pro. The Elephone U Pro always had issues with complicated edges, detecting the edges, apply the bokeh effect properly there. The Elephone U does a much better job with that. So it seems like the bokeh mode is easier to implement on the Mediatek chipsets for them. So just look at this gorgeous result, no issues whatsoever. But still it shares some of the other camera issues the Elephone U Pro had. For example, the amount of detail isn't always perfect. Sometimes pictures look a little bit blurry, which is sad, and also low light performance is as crappy as on the Elephone U Pro. So I start to believe that this is indeed a camera issue and not a software issue, because both devices use the very same cameras. Let's just have a look at what sensors they are using there. You can read that out with some apps. So let's have a look into the camera department. And as you can see, they are using a Samsung S5K3L8 sensor there. So I'm not sure why they didn't use Sony sensors in the Elephone U and the Elephone U Pro, because they have a lot of experience with them and they have proven in the past that they are able to use at least most of the potential of the Sony sensors. So results would have probably been better if they would have been using a Sony sensor on there, but well, you get what you get. Maybe they will be able to optimize it a bit with future updates. You will see about that. Something that did surprise me a lot is the fingerprint scanner on this phone. On the Elephone U Pro it was kinda slow. It always needed kind of half a second to unlock, but this one is extremely speedy. Look at that. I touch it and it immediately turns on. So that's as fast on Xiaomi phones as on high-end phones, which did surprise me a lot. I don't know why it's so fast there, but they didn't manage to do that on the more expensive Pro model. That's kind of surprising. Another difference between the Elephone U and the Elephone U Pro is that the Elephone U does not come with NFC and QI wireless charging. So if you need that, you need to pick the Elephone U Pro. Also, the wireless module inside of that doesn't support AC Wi-Fi, it only supports ABGN. So that's still dual band, but not as fast as AC Wi-Fi. Reception quality wise, it's pretty much on par with the Pro model. Wi-Fi reception quality is top-notch, GPS works absolutely flawless, and mobile network reception quality is kinda mediocre. Sometimes have issues connecting to data networks in areas with poor coverage, where some high-end phones still get a signal. The Elephone U doesn't, as the Elephone U Pro. It's not a big deal, but you definitely notice that it's not the best reception quality in areas with weak coverage. Regarding compass, gyroscope and all that stuff, it's there and it works perfectly fine. Regarding battery, the Elephone U comes with a slightly larger battery than the U Pro. It's a 3600 mAh battery compared to the 3400 mAh battery we have in the Elephone U Pro. And it is capable of charging with Pump Express, but you don't get a Pump Express power supply with this phone. It's just a 5 volts 2 amps power supply, so you won't be able to use fast charging with it. You need to buy a separate charger for that. Regarding battery life, so far it seems like it's a little bit weaker than the U Pro, which was to expect because the U Pro uses a 40nm chipset. The chipset inside the Elephone U is just a 16nm chipset, and it seems like the larger battery can't make up for that. But still, battery life is pretty decent. Just look at this screen on time, 6 hours 43 minutes. And I also run a lot of benchmarks during the past day I used this phone. So I think it will get a little higher than that when I use it for a couple of days. But you will be able to get easily throughout one day. If you use it less intense, you probably will be able to reach up to 2 days with this, so that's not too bad. What stood out to me is that the media speaker down there inside the Elephone U offers a bit more basses than the one in the Elephone U Pro, but that doesn't mean that it sounds better, because it seems like it can't handle the amount of bass they threw out with the mix down in this phone. It starts to scratch pretty easily on the higher volumes and sounds rather unpleasant then, so it's not the best speaker they put inside of there, which is kind of sad in this price range. Also, it does not come with a headphone jack, so if you want to use headphones you need to use a Type-C to 3.5mm adapter or native Type-C headphones. An adapter of course is included when you buy this phone. And I think that's enough already for the first impressions about the Elephone U so far. I'm not disappointed by it, but it definitely could be a little bit better in some areas considering the price tag, especially camera performance in a low light and of course speaker performance. But in a nutshell, it's still a much better choice than, for example, a Mediatek S2 Pro, which is expensive like shit, yet a pretty much useless phone. It has bad performance, an even worse camera, fake dual camera, and well, a software that is filled with bloatware and just slow, and it also has some viruses on it, and they are already charging 250 euros for that, I think. So I think the Elephone U still is a better choice when you compare it, but that doesn't mean that it is the most bargain phone out there, because if you compare it to Xiaomi, you get some pretty decent offerings that in a lot of areas are better than this phone for less money. But on the other hand, you also have to consider that the Elephone U can offer a few things that Xiaomi doesn't. For example, on the Mi A1 or Mi 5X, you have dual 3D glass on both the front and the rear. You have a curved display. You have an AMOLED screen, which Xiaomi still doesn't offer in any of their phones. And so yeah, it's quite a special device, you can't deny that. So it basically comes down to what you need. If you want something special and can live with the flaws, then this can still be a good choice. So yeah, that's about it. I will keep testing this phone and then come up with the full review in a couple of days. So stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching and see you then. Bye bye.